These are motorcycles. But how about this? Or this? Or even this? According to the U.S. federal government definitions, these are all considered motorcycles. But that might be about to change. Welcome to the channel, folks. I'm trying a different format today. We're going to call it Coffee with Mike, kind of a one-man podcast, if you will. We'll see how it goes. But today I'm talking about a piece of legislation that was introduced here in the U.S. to redefine how the federal government defines a motorcycle. The current federal definition of a motorcycle is a motor vehicle with motive power having a seat or saddle for use of the rider and designed to travel on not more than 3 wheels in contact with the ground. So that's going to include all your traditional 2-wheeled motorcycles. It's also going to include trikes, motorcycles with sidecars attached, things like the Can-Am Spyder, but it's also going to include basically any vehicle with less than 4 wheels. So that's why things like the Polaris Slingshot and your Vanderhalls are technically considered motorcycles. Now they're often referred to as autocycles because they are operated very much like an automobile. But since these are considered motorcycles, they do not have to comply with any of the automobile safety regulations as far as things like airbags, seat belts, minimum requirements for crash testing and things like that. Now, what was introduced in the House, this was introduced by Representative Derek Van Orden. He's from Wisconsin. He filed a proposed bill to redefine how the federal government defines a motorcycle. And he wants to alter it so that it is now defined as, or amends that definition to require a seat or a saddle that the rider sits astride, steering by handlebars and controls by handlebar and foot controls. Right? So with that definition, your trikes and Can-Am Spyders, sidecar rigs, they're all still going to be considered motorcycles under that new definition. But those autocycles, which essentially operate like 3-wheeled cars, would no longer be categorized under the federal law. They would not be categorized as motorcycles. So what? What's the big deal here? What does this mean? Well, the current language of this proposed bill is going to leave these autocycles out in limbo, where they're not motorcycles, they're not automobiles. And so where do they fall? Right? Because they're not going to be able to be considered or registered as an automobile because they don't meet all the other regulations and safety requirements that automobiles have to comply with. And this is being brought up. The people that are submitting and back this bill are stating that vehicles with steering wheels and bucket seats that you sit in side by side that operate like a car should not be treated as a motorcycle. I think the logic here is that most people understand that motorcycles are inherently more dangerous than a car, that they're not going to be as safe to operate on the road as a car, as an automobile. But they might not realize that about these autocycles. Right? The general buying public just may not be informed enough to understand that these cars with 3 wheels don't meet any of the regulations and requirements that a typical automobile has to meet. Now, the Motorcycle Industry Council, they're a trade group that represents the motorcycle and the power sports industry. They're pushing back on this mostly because of the impact to these manufacturers like Vanderhall, Polaris, and others that make these types of vehicles, especially ones, more like Vanderhall that are pretty much all in on this type of vehicle. And these companies, compared to your car companies or even your major motorcycle manufacturers that are, diversified, like, Honda makes, Kawasaki, they make all sorts of different things, and the others. These smaller companies just aren't going to have the resources to deal with something like this, and, may go out of business as a result. So if this bill were to pass, I see three ways that it could pan out. One, manufacturers are forced to comply with automobile regulations. So that means that they're going to have to spend a lot in money, time, resources, redesigning, retooling these autocycle vehicles so that they do comply with automobile regulations. Now, the end result being that they have all the safety equipment, that they meet crash test requirements. But even if, let's say that somebody like Vanderhall had the resources to do that and to essentially turn their vehicle into something that meets these requirements, it's likely to be very different than the platform that they have today, right? And, it might take away from the appeal of what attracts people to these types of vehicles that are looking at these as, something to go out and have some fun in. The other thing that could happen is at the state level, they may update their local laws and definitions to carve exceptions. Now, many states base their vehicle code and definitions all at the federal level. So if that's the case, if a state says, we follow the federal definition of what's a motorcycle, and that federal definition changes, then they either stay with that, or the state could carve out exceptions on their own, allowing these types of vehicles to still be operated on the road. Just as an example, some states have exceptions, like at a federal level, UTV side-by-sides are considered off-highway, off-road vehicles only, right? They're not something that you get tagged and registered and you can ride on the street. But some states, Montana, South Dakota, are just two examples. They have their own laws and regulations that do allow those types of vehicles to be tagged, registered, operated on the road. So states could take a similar approach to carve exceptions for these autocycles. And the third thing that could happen is either amending this current bill or having, another one submitted along with it that creates a category for these types of vehicles to fall under, right? Perhaps we create a new category of recreational vehicle, not to be confused with what we now consider a recreational vehicle, right? As far as campers and, things of that nature. But a category of vehicle that really is designed to be something that people just, are not using necessarily for their day-to-day transportation, but that they just take out to have fun because they enjoy it. The same reason that us motorcyclists, us two-wheeled enthusiasts, and the three-wheelers out there too, ride our bikes, right? Because we enjoy them, right? Either allowing them in their current format, heck, I'd say even let them put the fourth wheel on there, right? Because the only reason they come with three wheels isn't because they're, that's superior, gives them any kind of benefit. That is solely so that they can fit under that motorcycle definition. So I say let them put four wheels on it for better performance, better handling, but we kind of carve out, a new category for these vehicles to fall under. And in doing so, perhaps the regulations should say that, and this would probably be more at a state level, but that these things need, we need a campaign to make people aware that, hey, you may sit in it and drive it just like a car, but it's not just like a car as far as safety out on the road, right? It's not going to handle a crash as well compared to a modern automobile that meets all of the modern standards. But if people accept that, if people are aware of that and accept it and accept that risk, the same way us motorcycle riders are aware of that and accept that risk when we swing a leg over a bike, I say let them continue to ride these things, to operate these things and enjoy them. So that's kind of where I sit. I agree that they should not be considered motorcycles. They're not motorcycles. But I don't think that they need to be banned from the road. If people understand what they're getting into and they still want to do it for the enjoyment and the fun and they like these vehicles, let them have it. What are your thoughts? What do you think? Let me drop a comment down below. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this video format. If you want to see me talk about some other topics, and we'll see where this goes. Thanks for watching.